Hey, everybody, and welcome to the brand called You. I'm so excited today to welcome a very intriguing guest, Chaya Mueller Bronstein. Chaya was actually born in Switzerland, but after she graduated with a teaching degree and taught in Switzerland and Italy for a couple of years, she rather dramatically decided to move to India, where she ended up living for 7 years and began practicing and studying meditation with Osho, who used to be known as the famous spiritual leader Rajneesh. Well, since then, since those days, Chaya has facilitated many groups that practice Osho mystic rose, both in India, USA, Switzerland, Canada, and Greece, and many other therapy groups as well that she's run. She now lives in Sedona, Arizona, where she works as an intuitive psychic reader. She runs a plethora of meditative retreats. She does chakra, palm readings, energy and breath work, and is a senior trainer at the Osho Institute for Meditative Therapies. Welcome, Chaya, to our podcast. Now, probably from the awkward way I introduced you, you could tell that your kind of spiritual practice is in some way so foreign to me, but also so fascinating to me. And I think I've always, in a way, been a little frightened of pursuing things that are beyond my logical control. And what interests me is you were born and raised in Switzerland. And I lived in Switzerland as a child. And so my first question naturally is, I lived in Zurich. I don't know if you're from the German part of Switzerland, but it's really, at least when I was there in 1973, it was extremely regimented, controlled culture. Everything was by the book. Everything was on time. People were squeaky clean and honest. And it fascinates me that you felt compelled to leave that culture to seek something different. And I guess my first question is, why were you dissatisfied with Swiss culture, and what drew you to leave and go to India?
Well, so thank you for your friendly and welcoming and complete welcome, telling my whole life story. But this is really a great question because, some people ask me, Switzerland is always on the list of the highest happy people in the world because it has healthcare, the financial stuff is pretty secure. But exactly because of this regimented, this tightness, I always felt I'm much more of a free spirit. I love the Swiss culture as a merit, as a gift to be organized. It helps me in many ways to organize my groups or teach. But I love living in cultures with more chaos, more freedom, more space to be, that each person can be as crazy, as unique, as beautiful, as boring, as lovely, as out of control as they want to be. Just wild and free. And the Swiss background, of course, gave me a beautiful structure. But I forced moved to Italy just to learn the language, Italian. I speak French and German and English. These were the languages I was taught in school. But I wanted to learn Italian. And then at some point, I met an American boy, exchange student, and I hitchhiked around Europe with him. And when he had to go back to California, I went to be with him for a while. And I couldn't just say I'm going because of a man to America, that my pride wouldn't allow that. So I organized through the University of Zurich an exchange program that I would be a teaching assistant in the High School of Los Gatos, California, for Italian and German. And so in exchange, I got housing and language courses, pottery. And that's the time I met Osho in Oregon.
So let me explain to readers that Osho changed his name, correct? That he was known in the 70s as Rajneesh. So just to give some orientation.
Yes, he was known at that time as Rajneesh, and he had a commune in Oregon where I visited with a cousin of mine who was into all of that. And that was fascinating. And later, when he got expelled by the scared American government, and he went back to India after a world tour, I stayed then for 7 years in his ashram in Pune, India. Pune, it's called now. And he left the body. He died in 1990, but I stayed there till 94, practicing meditation, learning about chakra reading, balancing, energy work. And I've always been a reader. This Gypsy Tarot that I do with regular playing cards has been with me since, I think, 35 years or so. So, yeah, that was my studies in esoteric science in India. But it started in America through Martin, my boyfriend.
Now, did you, so you met Rajneesh in person, excuse me, Osho in person.
Yes.
Was it really a truly spiritual force like I've read about and heard about? Did you feel something profound, transcendent?
Yes. And that's the only thing I can say, because this experience cannot be conveyed without making it woohoo and crazy. But it's the most significant thing that has happened in my life, is seeing what happens to a human being when they disappear in nothingness, when they, it's like a deep meditative state where a person goes so deep inside, where they realize they're one with everything. And it has happened throughout history, with people like Jesus or Buddha or Zarathustra, Socrates. There's many enlightened beings in our culture, Lao Tzu, in different cultures, China, then the Japanese Zen masters. And Osho was somebody in that line. So it was so unbelievably amazing, deeply, you were bathing in an energy that it's just sheer delight and an incredible force of metaphysical energy. So it was a luck to meet such a master, to be able to find the whole spiritual journey is only about me. It's not about anybody outside. It's about finding my own center, my own core, my own depth of meditation. But he's a catalyst.
Yeah.
So it's not about a person cult, people can perceive it like that from the outside because he was such a magnet. It's such unbelievable energy. But the whole spiritual journey, and you mentioned that you're a little scared of all these things that you can't logically explain, but it's basically how to be loose and natural, how to be yourself, who you're meant to be beyond your conditioning, like beyond the regimented Swiss idea, don't be, what will the neighbors say if you do this? What will society say if you're yourself? And that is the quintessence of being spiritual, is finding your own being.
You talked about him disappearing. So in essence, is to be truly deeply spiritual to, in a sense, disappear, or is it to just remove all the superficial stuff? I'm trying to understand when you teach your meditative retreats, what you're striving for.
Yeah, it's not this is any mystic. If you read Eckhart Tolle or the old masters, Socrates or Buddha, there's a whole science to that. The Tibetans dedicated a whole country and centuries to the science of meditation. So Osho is a modern mystic who is much more loose and wild. But the quintessence is the same. The personality, who you are, who you project to the world, is at the surface. And we all need that. We all need to function in the world. We need an ego. We need to, hey, I'm this, I'm that. and social oiling and who we are. But in the center, there is a calm, a still, a silence that is in essence, when you feel relaxed around people, when you're being yourself, you fall into that space of, in a way, nobodiness. But any moment, because it's always there, if you imagine a circle, at the center is that stillness, that like the center of a hurricane. At the center of a twister, there's a stillness point. You could imagine the personality,
I.
our drama,
Storm, right? The eye of the storm.
eye of the storm. And that's kind of how our personality is. The drama and the love affairs and the fun and the careers and the money and all that, that's on the outside. But at the center, if you're still and centered, and we have it in our language, we talk about a centered person, a person who is at home in themselves. So Osho was very much that 0 point. And when a person really resides there solidly, in some ways they're so magnetic, it's unbelievable, and charismatic also, of course.
Yeah. In Judaism, we had this famous rabbi also, the Rebbe of Crown Heights, who had that same effect. My favorite Israeli poet is Yehuda Amichai, and he had a love poem, and he bemoans the loss of a girlfriend, and his last line said, "Had you and I stayed together, we could have become a silence." And that's what it reminds me of, that when you're talking about that.
Universal truth. They don't belong to Osho, Rajneesh, Buddha, Jesus. They belong to us. Each single human being has ownerships in that. To the right to disappear into silence.
And so when you run these various retreats and trainings all over the world, and you do many interesting techniques, child's play, silently sitting, are these all aimed at sort of helping you find your eye, so to speak, your silence?
They help to release repression. So Osho is a master of the 21st century. He realized we are so far from nature. We are poisoned with our food, our air, our water. Nothing is like 5,000 years ago. There is plastic, microplastics in our body. There is pollution in the air. There is fire, smoke. We are so, some children don't know where the food is coming from. It comes from the supermarket. Milk is in a square box. We are different human beings. And we are in our muscular structure. Many of us live here. We're very cyber or digital people. We tick off lists. We're not connected down to our legs, to our sexuality, to our feelings, to our hearts. We're just, in a way, avatars, like in the movies, that we're thinking our life. So these therapies are designed to bring us out of the head down into our whole being. So, for instance, there's meditative therapies. That's my specialty. I lead these groups together with my husband, who is a medical doctor by trade, but who is very also a meditator and understands these principles. So what we do, like in the Mystic Rose, there's 1 week of laughter where you laugh 3 hours a day, nonstop for no reason. We just did a retreat this summer. It's always hilarious. I've done it many times. I always participate as a facilitator. You are part of this. And this continuous laughter takes you over, releases the diaphragm, and all this holding and what will they say? You roll on the floor, there's mattresses, there's pillows. you interact a little bit with people, which is hilarious. But then more and more as the week go on, you take the laughter inside of you, and it takes you over. After a week like that, you're so close to your wounds, your pain. We use our life energy to repress all our wounds, and we don't want to deal with pain. And Osho says, that's one of my favorite quotes, that every mystic, every Buddha, every enlightened person throughout history said, go in. And we all hear it, but we don't do it. We don't meditate. We don't want to go in. And the reason why is because when we go in, there is pain for each single human being. Childhood issues, past life, shocks, accidents, abuse, trauma. There's so much going on. So the second week is tears. We cry for 3 hours a day with music. And it just comes out because you can't hold down after a week of laughter. You're so ready to cry, and it's so enjoyable and so deep. And so it's a very therapeutic. The therapy part is that you see the relive what happened with your stepfather or this or that, or in school, or a car accident, or a death of a loved one. These things move through you, but you just cry and cry. And it's so unburdening. And then the third week, it's a 21-day process. It's 3 weeks of silent sitting a day, meditation. And the meditation is the deepest one. All the participants, we've done this, as you mentioned, in Japan, in Canada, in India, in Switzerland, in America, all over the map, in Greece. The participants universally feel completely unburdened and ready, able to go so deep in meditation like they never went before. So that's an example of a meditative therapy, and it's about releasing the unnatural. And when you talked about child's play, that's a group called Born Again, where we become like children. And you can tell a group of adult people, just remember you're a child, just let yourself play. And there's nothing in this room but a few tissue boxes, and people create flowers, chains, play. It's just, we all have that child inside. So,
obviously, as a facilitator, obviously it's your job to safely bring out all of these emotions in people. And I wonder if you found that different cultures, you have to, I know as a storyteller and a trainer, I have to bear in mind the cultural aspects. For example, Dutch won't like to reveal anything emotional publicly. So I have them work in small groups, whereas Americans work in a different way. And I wonder how much culture comes into your approach.
So in this summer, we were 20 people in the group. There was one person from Iran, 2 from Northern India, 1 from Southern India, an African-American guy from Louisiana, some guys from New York, Czechia, Germany, Switzerland, Canada. So we had, am I leaving out somebody? Israel. We had many cultures, and that often happens in our groups. And everybody helps each other because there's no talking in the group. There's sharing sometimes in between. But, if somebody is inhibited in a certain way, they might we encourage people to hide under a blanket or to put on blindfolds for laughter. Everybody has to deal with their own conditioning. And that's part of the therapy, becoming aware of where your prison lies.
Ooh.
Like in Japan, for instance, because Japanese culture is very similar to Swiss culture. it's very, or even more, people are very synchronized. They're like, have you ever watched a group of Japanese tourists? They're like a school of fish. They're very aware of the other person, and they move as a group and a certain distance. Have you ever seen a school of?
Oh, I will watch. I will watch now. Very interesting.
And so in Japan, we had to give the permission. This is okay. And once you say this is the instruction, the sensei, the teacher is saying, or the facilitator is saying this is okay, no problem. Complete let go. But there needs to be an official, so there is differences.
Yeah.
And also some of the Eastern countries, there's a big taboo of lower energies, like sexual energy that is released, not that it's acted upon, but when, you know, part of us holding our bodies, like, or living up here so we don't have to deal with areas of life that are out of control. So there is a lot of deviated energies because it's such a taboo. And in America, the big taboo is death. Everybody's acting as if we live forever. There is youth is glorified over everything. So the West has the taboo of death, and the East the taboo of sex. It's basically birth and death. So these kind of, I mean, this is now theoretical, but these affect the body, how you behave.
It's fascinating. You know, I guess, and your doctor husband will now attest to this. There's been so much new research in the physiological results of these things that we always just used to assign to spirit. But I wonder, do you ever quantify medically? Like, do people come in with sort of hypertension and leave? I mean, is there a way to see the physical benefits?
There is, actually, I'm thinking I should show this. Let me bring this. I didn't think of this beforehand, but there is a book by Leila Itzler about Mystic Rose.
Okay.
She's an Australian woman. She describes the process. It's called Osho's Mystic Rose.
Okay.
On Amazon. And in there is a whole medical section because there was done some research. And my husband was part of the research at the time, in 89. Like the eyesight gets better. People had a change in 1 dioptry of how the eyes were seeing after the Mystic Rose. Blood pressure went down. There were definitely, I mean, we always do a before picture and then we do an after picture. And we did it again this summer. I can send them to you later.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Just the whole skin, people look younger. They're more radiant. There's light around them. And that's also the psychic reader in me. You know, I'm very aware of auras and lights and how people, what they're radiating. So that's one of the things that led me to be a psychic reader, is this perception of people's energies. Definitely, these meditative therapies are life-changing for people.
But how do they sustain that? They go back to Zurich or they go back to New York City. How do they sustain, you know, the spiritual?
Like I remember my childhood friend, she's a kindergarten teacher married to a lawyer in Switzerland. And she came and did the Mystic Rose with us in Sedona, Arizona. And she said she went back and she realized she never laughed in her life. And she started laughing with her children, with her husband, with her friends. That lightness of being, or that she actually can laugh, a full belly laugh, stayed in her life. And of course, meditation, silent sitting, the 3rd week. And when it's needed, to have a really, really deep cry. People are afraid of their tears. Tears are therapeutic. They're so important.
Yes.
It's very simple how they take it.
And again, it's all been now shown from a medical perspective. Even I know you do palm reading, and we now know that there's real medical truth to this, that by measuring the length of a certain line in your hand, it suggests certain levels of hormones and this and that, and it's really been quantified. And I wonder, is that a big part of your practice as well, reading palms and chakras? And
You're asking about this. My biggest practice is the Gypsy Tarot, which I do since
okay.
30 years. I use regular playing cards,
Okay.
using, playing cards and just like that.
Wow.
And people love it. It's very playful, and it's non-serious, it's non-threatening, but it can go very deep. So
doesn't it? I always suspected it really was a vehicle more for you to tap into your intuition than it was anything about the cards. I've always thought when people do readings, it's about what you feel rather than, no? Am I wrong?
Both. It's absolutely both. I also teach the Gypsy Tarot, so I've done many courses on Zoom and in person. So what I noticed there is so first of all, any reading is based on the heart chakra. You are taking the person that you're reading in some ways into your own heart. So it's called synchronicity from the heart. So when you are synchronizing with a person like that, the heart chakra is where magic happens. The heart chakra is where, if you're tuned in from the heart to a person in let's say in the Netherlands, and if you're really in sync, you want to pick up the phone, and at the same moment, the other person picks up the phone. That has happened to all of us. That's the magic of the heart. So a reading is based on that. And as I'm synchronizing with the person who is receiving the reading, I'm feeling what they're feeling. I also use the third eye, the pineal gland. It's a training of seeing energy. And that has happened to me. I also, from birth, I don't know if you see it, I have a mark here and a little hole in the skull, which I read once that the Tibetans, they were even drilling holes into the third eye. It might be a past life thing, but I have from very young child always kind of known things, or predict things. So I would say it's both. I feel the other person, I see a lot, but then the cards, there's a magic. Like I often use, I can't show you this, but this is what people choose from when they come into my office. They choose a deck out of many, many decks. And so let's say I just pulled the card, the 9 of spades, and then which means relaxation, no need to worry, healing. And then I say, so what's your let's pull another card from a different deck. What is the message? And okay, now the Jack of Hearts came, which is playfulness, creativity, innocence. But many times, so if we would go on, maybe if this is the main thing a person needed to hear, connect back with your innocence. You are such a lovely, sweethearted person. Remember that. Come from your head and live that. And then I would take a third deck and have them pull another card. So, I can tell you, all my students, in the readings, it happens all the time that they pick the same card, for instance. It's just, I don't know how it happens, but there's a magic that is to do with the unconscious, with energy. And so it's many factors. Yeah. But I wouldn't just exclude the cards, and say it's all intuition, it's all the heart.
No. It's a little bit of both, but clearly you're gifted. I'm there's plenty of people who maybe are less intuitive, but I feel it in you. I feel it. I feel something. You can feel it right away. I did when I first met you. So Yeah. I cannot believe we've been going for 30 minutes. I feel like we've only scratched the surface, but we're going to have a chance to put links to all of your fascinating work online. This is the first time I've ever talked to anybody who does your line of work, and I'm just so excited to have a very small taste of what it is you do and introduce it to the rest of the world. A lot of Indian viewers, so it will be very interesting.
That's nice. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah.
Thank you.
About the palm reading, I want you to just hold up your hand.
All right.
Are you right-handed?
Yes. Can you see?
Yeah. What I find remarkable in your hand, you might have seen that
You have the same.
the headline, which is the middle line in your hand, this line, going down into the Luna.
Yeah.
And the heart line, which is the one that goes up. One. They are not, the headline and the lifeline, I was going to say.
Yeah.
This is the lifeline, this is the headline.
Yeah.
Not connected at your thumb. Do you see that they're separate?
What does that mean? Yeah. What does that mean, though?
That you are very, very independent already as a child. You were in your family thinking, maybe, perhaps once or twice, how did I land exactly in this family? Because you had an independent way of thinking. So this is the headline and the lifeline being separate. Most people have it together. Means they're thinking exactly like their parents. So I'm always fascinated when I see people who have that gap. It means
wow. Can you see other things?
you have a beautiful heart line. The heart line is the top one, very clear. Do you see how that's your emotions?
Oh, it's not about your physical cardiology. It's about your emotions.
Yes.
And what does it mean to have a beautiful heart line?
It means you're not disconnected from your emotions. Oh. You are somebody who can express emotionally. And I bet in your storytelling, you're connecting, or you also have the sensitivity, like you said, with the Dutch audience, to approach them softly. You don't want to shock them. So you put them in little groups, and then with other people, you can blast your emotion more and
Well, and also my work as a story strategist is, if I had to sum it up, it's about helping people connect their story to their emotions.
That's what this means. You said the last sentence.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Wow. All right. and that's it. No other lines, right?
Well, there's a lot going on, but a lot of your lifeline is very clear and long. Nice. It goes all the way down. That means health. But my teacher was my husband. He learned it in the 70s in San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury times. He was one of those hippies in healing groups. And so they had a whole practice of laying on of hands and reading the palms in the 70s. And now, I can't share my screen, but there is still, look at that. You asked me about palm reading. I took this off the wall because he's just teaching. Yes. After 10 years, a neighbor asked, can you teach us palm reading? So in October, he's doing that.
Well, we'll let our viewers know, because this will air in just enough time to be able to advertise for you. So I'm glad we're getting it in now. Yes.
But yeah,
we will connect and let everybody know about the fascinating work the two of you are doing. Thank you so much for teaching me about myself and about what you do. And I really wish you all the best. It's so exciting.
Thank you, Lisa. It was an honor to be interviewed by you.
Thank you so much, Chaya. All the best. Okay, bye.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called you.